G'day, Teeth here from pickinglessons.com. In this guitar lesson we're going to learn a bunch of arpeggio licks. This lesson is a follow-up to the previous lesson at pickinglessons.com where we learnt a whole bunch of different arpeggio shapes. Arpeggios 101, we covered major and minor arpeggios, major seventh, minor sevenths and dominant sevenths as well. Looked at a variety of patterns that we can move around all over the neck. So if you're not too familiar with your arpeggios, I'd encourage you to have a look at that lesson at pickinglessons.com. In this lesson, we're going to break down what I played at the beginning of this video. So we're going to have a look at a bunch of licks, tying them into the different chords we're playing over. A D minor, a G minor, an A7, a B flat, an A, and we're in the key of D minor. These licks are purely arpeggio notes. So as we run through the licks, we're actually going to pull them apart a little bit and break down what we're using and how they fit within the arpeggio patterns we learnt in the previous lesson. In a moment, we'll break down the first couple of licks here in this lesson, but if you head to pickinglessons.com, you ought to get yourself the chart that we're working through that have all these licks. You'll also find the next part of this lesson where we'll break down the remainder of the licks, and we'll have a slow play through the entire example that I played at the beginning of this video. You'll also find the first lesson, Arpeggios 101, where you'll be able to learn all these movable shapes and get all the information you need for those. So pickinglessons.com. Now, let's have a look at what's happening here. We're in the key of D minor. The first lick that we're playing purely D minor notes. I'm not using any scale notes in any of these licks. These are all from the arpeggios. So the D minor chord, then the lick, now looking at what we're using here, there's the root note, there's the minor third, there's the fifth. That's what makes a minor chord, the 1, the flat 3 and the 5. 1, the flat 3 and the 5. Again, if you're not too sure about some of these arpeggios and you're not keeping up with what we're talking about here, jump over to Arpeggios 101, pickinglessons.com. Now, there's that minor third, open D, there's the F, the minor third, there's the fifth. Then I'm going to go up the octave to the D and the minor third, remembering that our second string is tuned different to the others, so our minor third becomes that shape. And then we just play on those two notes. So that lick from the beginning, just making use of the two different positions we have there. So the open D, then a D minor in this position as well, that we could carry on if we wished, but we will do that later on. So this lick one more time, 3, 4. So no passing notes, purely arpeggio notes, so notes from the chord. You don't always need passing notes. A lot of styles don't use them all the time. Of course, passing notes are great. We can use lots of passing notes in our playing too. But this exercise that we're going through here in this lesson is just really looking at the arpeggios and forming ideas and licks using those arpeggio notes. So there's that first lick over that D minor chord. Now the second lick we're going to have a look at, we're moving on into the G minor. And the G minor, we actually kick it off at the end of the second measure there, finishing our D minor. We're anticipating the G minor coming in. And so what we get for the G minor lick is, now there's your G root note. We'll go through it slow in a second. So there's your G root note, there's your minor third, there's your fifth. And we're playing off those three notes. Then we resolve back to the inside the D minor chord, part of that next lick that we'll go to. But at the moment, this G minor lick, we've got the G to this minor third up to the fifth, and we play this idea just around those notes. So on the offbeat, 4 and 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4. Before we change over to the fifth fret, which is going to be part of that next D minor lick. So the idea of that arpeggio, again, we've got the G root note. We have its minor third. We have its fifth. And we're making use of those notes to create a bit of a phrase, changing up the rhythm and whatnot, but we're just using the arpeggio notes. Again, this is what we're doing here in this lesson. So getting us to the next note there, which will tie back into the D minor. We'll have a look at that lick a little bit further onto this lesson at pickinglessons.com. Now, first lick, into the second lick. All arpeggio notes. I think it's pretty cool. I think it works great. I think in certain styles of music, this is going to work awesome. You hear it a lot. To be honest, it's going to work in any style of music. What we're looking at really is how our notes in our lead playing really want to tie into the chords. So we want to play to the changes. The first D minor change, G minor's coming in. Now, the next change is back to the D minor, so we're going to play over that. Then as we move through, we've got different chords. The A7 comes up, the B flat as well. So we'll be covering major chords. We've got the minor chords, we've already got these going. You'll notice the minor third in there. G minor, D minor, G minor. Pickandlessons.com, Arpeggios 101, if you're not too confident with these arpeggios yet. But we're using these licks over the chord changes and they sound great. So let's play through that once more, just through the D minor to the G minor. So 3, 4, and 1. Anticipating that next chord change coming in there, that A note does belong to the D minor chord. Okay, so I hope you can see how the arpeggio notes are fitting against the chords. Obviously the arpeggios are built from the notes of the chord. That's what they are, broken chords. So our lick ideas are using those notes exclusively, no extra passing notes. Of course we can put in passing notes, but you can hear how effective it is even when we don't. Next part of this lesson at pickandlessons.com, we will continue working through the other ideas that you heard at the beginning of this video. You'll also be able to get yourself a copy of this chart that we're working through that has all these licks. Plus, if you want to have a refresher, jump into Arpeggios 101, which is there at pickandlessons.com as well, and you'll be able to learn these shapes that we're using. Remembering that these shapes, these arpeggios are completely movable. You know, what we're using for a G minor could be an A minor. What we're using for the D minor down the neck could be played as an F minor. Obviously moving out of the open position there, but these ideas are completely movable. And so the arpeggio shapes are movable. Even these licks are movable once you understand how they work. And that's the whole point of what we're doing. So jump on over to pickandlessons.com. You will be able to get yourself this tab and the next part of this lesson. I'll see you there.